Welcome to another episode of Think Mighty, a video series and podcast for active lifestyle and outdoor brands, where we interview marketers, founders, and entrepreneurs on their growth strategies. Be sure to subscribe on YouTube or follow along wherever you get your favorite podcasts. Let's get into the episode. So, hey, welcome back to the show. We've got Jeff Zeiders on here with Cigar Club. Jeff, how's it going, man?
I'm doing great, Jared. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. We were expecting snow today, but it turned into rain.
All right. I mean, I can't imagine being north negative 60 degrees. I think I saw in Minnesota, the high was like negative 35. It's just not my kind of place.
So let's start with tell everybody who you are and a little bit about your company.
Yeah, sure. So I am Jeff Zeiders. I'm the co-founder and current CEO of cigarclub.com. I moved to Mobile, Alabama about 3 years ago. And about 6 months into my time here, I attended a Google Startup Weekend program. Long story short, we basically formed the seeds of what is now cigarclub.com at that weekend. And through the course of a lot of late nights and long hours, we were able to form an idea into a small company, which is really just sort of a testing ground for what we thought could be fun and exciting and cool. And then during the course of the past 28, 30 months now, we've grown it to something that I'm really proud of and excited to get to talk about with you here today.
Very cool. So I didn't realize you started at the Startup Weekend. Like, how did the idea come about? What was the insight you had?
So that's a really good story. Part of me loves to tell the story, part of me doesn't, because it shows almost how much luck is involved when it comes to really anything that, matters. So the key part of the program is basically if you walk in Friday at 5 o'clock, I think when we had our meetup, there were about 65, 70 people. Everyone is asked to do a 60-second pitch to the group. Well, I sort of went into this weekend without any concepts or any ideas, and I really just to sort of sit back and observe and sort of just be sort of a fly on the wall. But after seeing the first 55 people go up and pitch their ideas, I sort of guilt complex forming. And so I thought, well, I should probably just go up and be a full member of this thing. So I got in line, and I was probably, 10, 15 people deep. And when I got in line, I had no idea. I had no concept. And from the time I got in line to the time it was my turn to pitch, cigarclub.com formed. And it was truly in those probably 15 minutes that it turned from a, what am I going to pitch to, okay, this is kind of a cool concept, sort of like a Netflix for cigars, which I had just never seen before. And I thought it was a cool concept. I had no idea if it was plausible or legal or, executable. I just pitched it. It's truly a spur of the moment idea, sort of one of those light bulb moments. The way it worked is the overall group basically voted on what they felt were the top 5 pitches. And our idea was picked as one of those top 5. We formed a group of about 7 people and spent Friday night through Sunday night working on a go-to-market plan, a marketing strategy, business plan, basic financials, and we placed in the pitch competition at the end of that weekend. So it was kind of a crazy weekend. I had no intentions of doing anything serious during the course of the weekend. The goal of the weekend really isn't even to be something serious. It's just to network and to learn and to grow a little bit. But the idea was so intriguing that at the end of that weekend, I actually went home and for the next 2 weeks was like, man, this thing actually could be something real. And so I did some basic forecasting and put together a 10-page business plan. There was a guy on that team named Chris, who I really liked. 2 weeks later, I called Chris up just to get lunch. And it turns out he had spent his last 2 weeks doing the same thing that I did. He would basically put together a 10-page forecast, and we shared notes, and they were pretty close. So at that lunch, we shook hands and formed a company.
That's awesome.
Pretty cool.
Very cool. Yeah. So did this come from a personal sort of problem or opportunity that you identified, or how did you think of it in that 15 minutes in line?
Well, I've always, I've enjoyed cigars since college, really. And I've always thought that the cigar buying experience, both online and in store, just kind of sucked. I just never felt like there was a good shopping experience. Online, we have these, and still today, so have these really bloated, really huge online stores. There's no real guided service of what you should buy and what you shouldn't buy. There's no real recommendation engine. Unless you really know what you want, it's sort of this vast ocean of possibilities. In most brick and mortar settings, and not in all, but in most settings, they're smaller retail settings. They're often smoke filled, and there's a bit of a pressure if you don't know what you're doing. You're sort of being watched by the store owner and your peers, and you kind of feel like you kind of have to go through the motions of picking a cigar and smelling it, looking at it, and pretending like you know what's going on. I just felt like both of those experiences were not keeping up with customer expectations, and we're not evolving with the market and not evolving with the millennial sort of mindset as to how to shop. So that had always been a problem for me. I never felt comfortable in store, and I always felt confused online. And I don't know if I had a cigar the night before or what happened, but somehow that problem, which I had never really identified out loud as a problem, just sort of seeped to the surface, and it, popped out as, what if we could build a service that was part curation? You had cigars coming to your door in a convenient way, part curation, but part discovery. Both for the person who has no idea what they like, and also for the person who has the sense of what they like, but doesn't really know how to talk about it or want some help to really get a broad range of what they like within a cigar palette.
Nice. So let's take it a step further into what Cigar Club is. What's that process for the curation and how you help the customer make selection?
Right. So the first thing that every member does is they walk through a taste palette quiz. And basically what we do is we ask people about their favorite foods and drinks. We found that a lot of people don't really know, even those that like cigars, don't really know how to express or verbalize what they like or what they don't like within a cigar profile. But it's easy for all of us to, talk about what's our favorite type of beer or whiskey or food or proteins. It's a lot easier for us to explain what we like and what we don't like. So we thought, what if we could design a algorithm or a process where we ask people about their food and drink preferences, and they can translate that into a cigar palette wheel. So that's what we built. It's a piece of math on the back end of our site that really knows how to correlate food and drink preferences with cigar preferences. So whether you know how to talk about cigars or not, it's a really low barrier to entry to our site. So it's great for discovery. And then basically at a high level, what we do every time, at the core of this, it's a subscription box service. When it's time for us to pack someone's box, our algorithm looks at the member's palette wheel, and then it looks at all of the cigars that we have in stock at that moment, which usually is between 40 to 80 different types of cigars. It looks at what we've shipped that person in the past. It looks at any feedback that they have given to us on our site. And then it basically picks the top 3 to 5 choices for that person and builds a list that then goes to our packing service who packs the box and mails it out. So what makes us different in the space is every member truly gets their own box every single month. There are other cigar clubs. What they do is they send a single collection to every single member. So regardless of your palate, regardless if you can't stomach really, really strong cigars or you really don't like really, really mellow cigars, you're going to get a randomized collection. And almost by design, that's going to hit and miss. There will be options that you just don't like. So we found a way to personalize every box. So every experience is very likely to be positive. And on top of that, we have a discovery guarantee, meaning that if we pick something for you and you just hate it or it's just the wrong pick, you just let us know and we will replace it free of charge for you. So we're super confident in the process, and we've seen some really great results so far.
That's interesting. So when you first got started, it was kind of based on your personal experiences and needs. How did you identify a core customer, and what did you do to learn more about who was going to be a customer of Cigar Club?
Yeah, one of the biggest things that I would recommend to anyone starting out with a business, especially a consumer-focused business, what is called in the lean startup lingo is to get out of the building, which means that as a founder or as a co-founder, you can have what you think is the best idea in the world, but it may be that no one really wants it. One of the first things we did probably within the first month was we went out and we just interviewed people, friends and family, through some online social forums, through Reddit, through Facebook groups. Basically just did some basic polling to ask, one, this is our concept, sort of ground base of the concept. Is this something that you would like? What do you think is a fair purchase price? How much would you be willing to pay for this type of product? What sorts of brands or what level of cigar quality would you want to see? So we really took our core idea, which it was close to what we do now, but it for sure changed. But really just to get out there and just ask people what they want. And you'll be probably actually not surprised how willing people are to talk about what they want if you just present it in a good way. One of the things that I would also recommend is to not come out with a product or an idea at the gate, because if you come at them and say, this is our solution, then they're going to sort of jump and assume that there's a problem. What we tried to do is elicit and to draw out explanations of the problem. And then once we knew what the problem was, say, hey, we agree, this is our thought for a solution. Does this make sense to you? If you start with the solution, you sort of bypass the sort of problem phase. And if the problem's not really a problem for the mass group, it's just not going to sail. So I would start with the problem, try to get what the problem is, and then put a solution on it.
That's really good. I like that. So you identified, that there was a problem. Who is the core customer of Cigar Club now?
I'm really excited and proud. Historically, the industry as a whole has had a very hard time marketing and finding out how to reach the younger demographic, so between 30 to 50. If you look at the industry as a whole, about 80% of cigar buyers are 50 and older. And it's also about 95% male. Our core demo is between 35 and 45, and we have 20% females in our space. So we found a way to really tap into that younger millennial and pre-millennial market as our core. We're not probably going to appeal to the cigar aficionado, the one who really knows all of the brands. They know exactly what they like and what they don't like. We appeal more to the newcomer, to the amateur, to the person who has some background but really wants to get out there and explore and discover. Really, I think the core demo going forward is going to be the consumer who expects something more from a cigar shopping experience. I don't think the future cigar buyer is going to be okay with the current model. That's what we're targeting, is how to affect change within the industry as a whole so that we can be on the front end of knowing how to sell and be attractive to the upcoming wave of cigar buyers.
Nice. So you mentioned that the getting something more in the shopping experience that you're providing through the subscription service. And I know you have really nice packaging. So let's talk about how have you built out that experience in the customer journey so that it is something to get onto.
Yeah. So when we launched, seed of this whole story is that this was a off the cuff concept. So it was really this was not something that Chris and I sat down, planned for a year, raised some money, and then did it. This was really see what we can do with this sort of mindset. With that being said, we really didn't have any capital. We both had full-time jobs. This was still just a concept. We weren't willing yet to really invest lots of our personal money or to leave our jobs to pursue this until we had a better sense of what the real proof points were. But we also had the truth that we were a consumer-facing company, and we needed a brand. We needed a great website. We needed great packaging. We needed good customer service. There's a whole suite of things that come along with being a B2C business, which tend to cost a lot of money. So our approach was to just go out into the mobile sort of market and to see if we could find a way to structure a deal with a local marketing firm so that we could get some of these services at a lower cost. So we reached out to a few different companies. Two of them took our calls. And after I walked in and did the pitch, I said, this is cigarclub.com. This is our concept. It's going to be awesome. 30 minutes into the meeting, hey, but we don't have any money. So would you be willing to do this at no cash? And you might imagine that doesn't always go over very well. But there was one company they were slow that month or what was going on, but they were willing to take us on. And so for a small piece of equity of the company, they developed our entire ecosystem of our brand and our look and our feel. So that's a process that if you want to go that route, I can recommend it, but I can't really say it's really scalable. We kind of got lucky there. Same place with how the Launchpad weekend worked out. It was a lucky set of circumstances. I think it was the right place at the right time with the right people. And we were able to broker a small equity deal. So that was probably one of the most impactful moments in our history because we were able to secure that at no cost. But at the same time, we now had a partner who had a vested interest into doing the best job possible. And they stayed with us for about 2.5 years. So they were a great partner for us throughout our launch process for sure.
Awesome. So as you guys built out this ecosystem of brand assets, you've got the customer journey kind of developed with the packaging and business models sort of out there. How did you grow? What did you do as a bootstrap startup to get traction? Yeah.
So again, not having cash, this was early 2017. So we launched the startup weekend was August 2016. We signed our deal with our marketing firm in September 2016. And by December 7th, we had our first paying customer. So it was a very quick process. The first 1 or 2 months was purely word of mouth, family, friends, local market, local buzz, sort of get that scene going. And that's how we probably acquired our first 25 to 30 customers, which is good because recurring revenue service. So even 30 customers, that's not 30 transactions. That's probably 120 to 150 transactions. That was a good starting point for us. This will sound antiquated and probably not really right, but January, February 2017, it was a lot easier to get a lot of traction on Instagram than it is in January 2019. While it seems like Instagram has really been around forever as a sort of go-to resource, back then, I would argue there was less competition to get eyeballs on the Instagram platform. So we found that just by creating some really great content, part of our deal with the marketing firm is they would also provide photography. So we had professional photography done. We had shoots done. We had product shots done. So we were able to present on Instagram a really visually satisfying presence. So one, we had that sort of up on our timing on IG, but two, we had the great collateral and the great visuals so that we could create a brand and tell a story. We also decidedly, from the very beginning, decided to live outside of the typical visual language that most cigar companies have. When you look at most cigar companies' collateral and photography and brand, it's very much this sort of old school feeling to the brand. We wanted to have our brand feel much younger, much more streamlined, and much more clean. And so our focus from the get-go was to create a language that felt more like you were buying into a technology product, less so that you were buying into a consumer good. And so we really focused that from day one. So I think it was a combination of the timing that we could really use Instagram in a lot of ways, combined with actually having good content. Because if you don't have good content, you're not going to go anywhere. And so through the facility of our marketing group, we could provide great content that spoke out at a really good time to be on social. That compounded with the fact that we were really the first subscription service that was doing something a little bit different, and that was more of an independent boutique cigar company. We could really tell that story very, very well in a less crowded marketplace.
Cool. So you mentioned that, you are a subscription service, so you're dependent on return customers.
Yeah.
And you also talked about how one transaction, if you get a customer, it's not just one transaction, it's a lifetime of transactions. So,
yeah.
How do you calculate the lifetime value of a customer? And then how do you balance budgeting acquisition versus retaining those customers?
It's a great question. And it's one of the harder things when it comes to subscription box services is how to assess that math, how to balance what you want to spend from an acquisition side. The way that we calculate it is it's a little bit difficult because we have multiple tiers of our service. You can buy either 3 cigars a month or 5 cigars a month. You can also have it be a quarterly box as opposed to monthly. So we basically have 4 different types of customers. So we have to sort of blend those in to find out what is the average value for the total community of our customers. Once we have that figure, we then go ahead and we're able to pull out records of the mean, median, and mode for transaction duration. Each of our customers, we then multiply that, usually the mean, that by the blended value, and that's our lifetime value. So that's the basic formula for how we do that. And then really from that point, it's really a question of where you are from a company point of view as to how quickly you can scale, how quickly you want to scale, and do you want to achieve a growth rate that is slow and steady but lower risk, or are you willing to view acquisition in a much more risk-friendly way, and you're willing to spend more for a customer so that you can achieve growth and that you can achieve scale? I would say that we're still in a point where we want to scale quickly, and so we are not over-investing. But from a long-term point of view, we're spending more on acquisition because one of the key natures of our product is that it's inherently a social viral product. So the quicker that we can scale our base, the faster we can scale our viral marketing efforts. In a viral sense, if you capture a viral customer who has a 1.5 viral ratio, every one customer that you pay for nets you a extra half customer. So we're at a point of view where if we can achieve a 1.5 to 2.0 viral ratio, it's worth it to us to spend more on customer acquisition, even if we're not going to get a huge margin on the lifetime value. If we can build that base up to where we need it to be, where we know that viral marketing will sort of begin its own process, that's where we want to be. I would say for a younger startup or a new startup trying to get off the ground, I would suggest to have a more balanced approach so that you can have a good margin and a good reserve so that you can spend more on sort of the things that are less sexy and that you just need to really run a business well. But yeah, we're in that mode. 2019 is all about scale for us. We've sort of gone out of the bootstrapping realm. We've raised capital, and we're using that capital to really invest deeply within marketing.
I think that's a really common and important marketing tactic for especially consumer products, is to get the actual physical product into somebody's hand. If you look at Red Bull, that was their entire marketing strategy, was to give away the product because they knew that there's a virality aspect to it. And also, it's a consumable product. So you're developing habits, right?
Right.
And that kind of gets into what, we talk about in today's world, influencer marketing, whether it's, like a celebrity influencer, or it could even be like a micro influencer. Have you guys leaned on influencer marketing to any degree? And if so, explain that a little bit.
For sure. And I think, again, this ties back a little bit to our timing, and then I think that we were fortuitous with our timing. But yeah, we've for sure done influencer marketing. I found that especially in 2017 and early 2018, The sweet spot for us was to not try and go after the sort of mega star within the cigar industry or within the cigar sort of social world. There's a wide range of personalities, everything from your cigar geek / expert to your beautiful cigar person to your industry insider person. There's a wide range of types of. We found that the sweet spot for us was to target those influencers who were still getting started. So as opposed to trying to target the person with 50,000 followers, we would go after the ones with 3,000 followers. The ones that had gotten a little bit of traction were still in the field, but were still very hungry to find partners and to find ways that they could grow. So as opposed to dropping $5,000 or $4,000 on a post from someone with a wide base, we found that these were people in exchange for basically some free product would be willing to make a post. And you'll often find that these smaller guys, I'd say 3,000 to 10,000 followers, their followers are also usually more engaged. There's a deeper level of engagement. If you look at it from a ratio of sort of comments to followers, there's a deeper engagement because it feels more personal. And so that for us was a big deal. We probably, between 2017 and Q1 2018, probably had 15 to 25 different people that made posts on our behalf. So that was a good part of our marketing plan. Again, that was all very low cost. We were trying to be very lean, very slim. And that was our sweet spot was that 2,000 to 5,000 follower sort of person who would be more than excited to do a post for free. I think part of that was because we had invested in a brand that really felt solid and felt probably bigger than it was at the time. And it felt like it was this great platform. We had a great Instagram ourselves. For the influencer, this almost felt like they were sort of getting more out of it than we were going to get out of it because they were able to tag up with a brand that felt really, really good and really showcased. So yeah, that's a great strategy. The deeper and deeper we get to Instagram, the harder it is to have a clear voice. So I would almost suggest for sure do Instagram, for sure do Facebook, but be on the lookout for other newer social platforms where you may be able to have a louder voice sooner. That may be a good way to diversify your efforts and to sort of get on the front end of what is the up and coming platforms.
Very cool. So at this point, it sounds like your entire journey has just been super easy and full of rainbows and unicorns.
Yeah, man. That's startup life.
Yeah.
Hashtag startup. It's easy.
Right?
It's easy.
Yeah, hashtag hustle.
Yeah. Yeah, that's it.
Talk a little bit about some of the challenges that you have faced throughout the journey and how you overcame them.
So many. I mean, it's been a really powerful journey. We did this, Chris and I did this really as a nights and weekends passion project for the first year. Yeah, for about the first 14 months, this was a nights and weekends passion project. We didn't pull any salary. We didn't pull any money out of the company. It was just working really late nights and putting in time on the weekends outside of our full-time jobs. So that was the sort of first struggle, was just the sort of time management of how to balance what's paying your bills versus what may turn out to be something in the future. One of the major milestones was when we got to a point where I felt comfortable enough that I could leave my full-time job, which had a great 401k, it had a great benefits, it was a really great tech job, that I could leave that to come and do this full-time. Part of that challenge was the fact that we had twins that were 3 weeks away from being born. So I quit my great full-time job 2 weeks before they were born to launch into the startup. So the level of stress and time that took was a challenge for sure. So just, personal challenge pop up all the time. I think from a business point of view, one of the hard things that we do is our operations. I mean, one of the reasons why there are not businesses like ours is because what we do is very technically difficult, both on the sort of back end of how to build a algorithm that can run this process, but secondarily, you'll be hard pressed to find any company that does any sort of fulfillment service where every customer gets their own box, especially in the sub box world. You may have one or two variants, but at any given time, we're sending out a lot of boxes that are unique to each person. So developing a process to do that right can be challenging. One of the big challenges we faced in 2018 is we began to oversell, meaning our marketing and our sales were doing so well that we began to have some challenges on the actual operation side. We became so busy that our existing infrastructure just really couldn't support what we were selling. So finding ways to make that happen so that we didn't disappoint customers was a huge challenge for sure. We also faced financial challenges. There was a pretty serious time in late 2017 where I knew exactly how many days we had left worth of cash before we were just out of business. So being able to actually look at a calendar and say, hey, by X date, December 2017, we're out of business unless we can do something awesome. Those are pretty scary moments, but finding ways to overcome those through partnerships and through looking at your costs Trying to think what else. Customer service can be its own wonderful nightmare. We love all of our customers, but there are just challenges where if you can't meet expectations or you just miss expectations. We recently had a shipping challenge for some international customers, which really let people down. And so being able to bounce back from those hardships and from those experiences is always a challenge. We always want to do the right thing for every single customer, but we're all human and we will miss it sometimes. And so being able to really come back from those hard experiences is a challenge also. We've also had the challenge of knowing how to invest. We hired Shanda Lee back in the late summer of 2018. She is a industry veteran. She has 12 plus years of executive level experience within the cigar industry. We are not a huge company yet. So bringing on someone like that was a financial challenge and a risk, and something that we believed that we needed to invest in to take us to the next level. So there are endless challenges to the startup scene. We're still a startup. My sort of definition of a startup is any company that is looking to achieve scale quickly. And that's certainly what we are trying to do. And so as an owner who has responsibilities to investors, you have to really balance what are the needs of the business today versus what are the goals for the future. And a lot of the times they seem to conflict with each other. So learning how to balance that has been probably the biggest challenge and the biggest growing opportunity for me professionally.
We talked about challenges. Let's talk about some positives. What has been something that worked out very well, surprisingly, that you didn't expect?
I would say that while we intended it to happen, we were really surprised by how quickly we grew our social presences. We did not, worked hard for it and we planned for it, but we did not expect to grow that quickly. One of the other surprises was with hiring Shanda, in that we had been on the lookout for not a entry-level marketing person so much, but sort of a mid-level, and just to sort of help us maintain things and to keep the wheels on the bus. But I got news. Shanda is big enough of a name that when she left her last company, it was on all of the blogs, all of the websites within the industry. This was a big news day. So I saw that and had never talked to her. I sent her a LinkedIn cold message and said, "Hey, my name's Jeff. I think we have this great opportunity for you. Would love to hop on the phone." Within 4 hours, we were on the phone. About 6 conversations later, we had a chief marketing officer. And so the timing of that, again, we were looking for something, but the timing of her becoming available and wanting to pursue something that was a little bit more of a startup feel and less of a corporate role was, you just couldn't have planned for that sort of moment to happen. One of the other big things has always been, and it's happened to us twice now, is Christmas. While we are a sub-box service, we're a recurring revenue service. We also have a major gift part of our website also. So you can give a gift, you can give a 1 to 12-month gift of our club. And man, Christmas revenues, when I say they're 1,000+% higher than usual, every year is this is part of the reality of this life right now is we had a crazy awesome Christmas, but that meant December 26th through New Year's, I was at the office until 1 a.m. every single day and helping to pack stuff up and helping to keep things in order. That's part of the challenge and the journey, is being willing to put in those hours. Being a co-founder, being an owner, it's cliche, but the buck stops with you. If things go wrong, if things fail, there's no one that you can look back on and say, it's your fault. Getting it done matters. We're super lucky that we've grown a really great operations team. We have a few people that handle all of our customer service and our operations. So I'm not as closely involved as I used to be. But when that time comes, you just have to step it up. And so that's always just a big surprise is how successful Christmas is. Even though we should know it by now, we just don't. It just always surprises us. Yeah.
It happens every year, right? So
yeah. Yeah, it's a recurring moment. Yeah. But it's always, it's just the scope of how big it is. It's huge for us.
It's like Christmas at Christmas, right?
Yeah. That's a huge mind shift being in this business too, is we're already planning on Father's Day. And so mentally you're sort of so far in the future, and I'm sure you're like this too with your clients, but you have to be thinking always 4 to 6 months ahead of what's going to happen so that you have time to actually execute, so that you can prepare materials and so that you can execute. That's been a major mental shift of balancing my personal life with the sort of business mindset of how to view the seasons within a year.
Yep. That's awesome. Well, is there anything, so there's a lot of people listening that are either wanting to start a business or maybe they're in the same shoes you're in. What's some advice that we haven't talked about yet that you would like to give them that you think would be beneficial?
I would say there's a startup approach called the lean startup method. I would advise getting a book on that and just getting some core concepts around launching lean. The whole idea, the sort of core concept of that model is that you know less than you think that you know, and that you don't need to go through the process of developing a fully developed, fully ready to launch product before you can get started. So I would recommend the lean startup method just to get you going with a low capital risk. Get out of the building. If you think that you have a concept for a product, go and talk to people and ask questions and get feedback and get input. I would also say that I think we have a little bit of the myth of the solo entrepreneur as sort of being this hero or this savant sort of personality. Find a partner. Find someone who can put you in check and you can bounce ideas off of and can tell you when you're wrong and when you're right, and can help you be a partner in that process. Doesn't have to be a co-founder, doesn't have to be a 50-50 owner. Find a trusted colleague or a friend that you can go to and loop them into what you're doing. Don't try and do this solo. If you try and go solo, it's probably not going to work. And then surround yourself with good people. Go to your chamber of commerce. Most of us sort of younger guys guys and girls don't think about that much, but your chamber usually has great resources for you of how to get started, some great networking possibilities. And based off of your product line, if you're a B2C customer, especially, really know what your brand is and really have a core understanding of who you're trying to sell to and why and what their problem is. You can have a great product, you can have a great service. If you can't demonstrate value through your brand, it's going to be really hard for you to gain traction. And I guess the last piece of advice is don't quit your day job. Try and do this as try and get your feet in it first. There are people that can be over eager to get things started and they feel that they can only do it right if they invest themselves fully in it. That is probably true in some circumstances, but I have found that in most cases, start slow and just sort of scale. And it gets to a point where you really feel conflicted that you're at a sort of inflection point that you can't do both things well. And if you ever get to that point, you'll know it. You'll have a feeling that you've arrived. But I guess that's a two-part piece of advice. One is don't be scared to start something new because you're scared that you can't do it unless you do it full time. Then the flip side of that is if you have something new, test it out, get some customers, get it going before you leave your full-time job. So that's my sort of flip coin piece of advice is how to get started.
Nice. Awesome. Well, where can everybody go to find Cigar Club and sign up for your service?
Yeah, so our site is just cigarclub.com. That was our biggest investment. That was our first real risk, was buying that name. It was not cheap. Cigarclub.com. We're on social. It's cigarclub.com, but it's cigarclub.com for most of our platforms. That's our Instagram and our Facebook. Give us a shout. If you need help signing up, we have a great support team, support@cigarclub.com. We're happy to get you started and answer any questions, and we'd love to see you.
Awesome. Well, hey, Jeff, thanks for coming on the show, and look forward to talking to you later.
I appreciate it, man. Thank you.
Thanks.